Close your eyes. Let the cool air fill your lungs, holding it for just a quiet moment. And then let it gently go. Feel the tension in your shoulders melt away into the softness of your bed. Tonight we are leaving the modern world behind. We are turning off the bright lights, the buzzing screens, and the endless rush of the day. Instead, we are traveling across the oceans of time, back to a night where the only light came from the silver glow of the moon and the soft, crackling embers of a campfire. We are going back nearly 2,350 years ago, to an ancient world of small kingdoms, vast skies, and whispering forests. This is the story of a young mind who looked at the horizon and saw an endless canvas of dreams. This is the complete, peaceful journey of Alexander. Our story begins in the royal city of Pella, in Macedonia. It was a land of rugged mountains, pine-scented air, and wild, rushing rivers. The night Alexander was born, the sky itself seemed alive with a fierce summer thunderstorm lighting up the marble pillars of the palace in soft, electric blue flashes. His father, King Philip II, was a cold calculator of strategy and politics. But his mother, Queen Olympias, belonged to the world of dreams, ancient mysteries, and starry skies. She whispered to the young boy that he was destined for a journey unlike any other. As the years drifted by like clouds, the young prince grew. He was fiercely curious, observant, and deeply imaginative. To guide this brilliant mind, King Philip built a quiet school in a secluded village called Mysa, surrounded by green olive groves and cool, flowing streams. He invited the greatest philosopher of the ancient world to be his teacher, Aristotle. Under the shade of ancient trees, as the river water rushed softly over smooth stones, Aristotle taught Alexander about the stars, the geometry of nature, poetry, and medicine. The world is vast, Aristotle would say, pointing to the sunset. A true leader does not conquer with anger. He conquers with understanding. Alexander listened deeply, learning to find a quiet center of gravity within his own racing thoughts. It was during these youthful years that a wild, magnificent black stallion named Bucephalus was brought to the court. The beast was massive and untamable, rearing back and snorting in terror. King Philip ordered the horse to be taken away, but young Alexander noticed something others had missed. The horse was simply terrified of its own moving shadow on the sun-baked earth. Alexander walked forward, his footsteps soft and deliberate. He spoke to the stallion in a low, soothing melody, gently turning its head toward the blinding sun, so it could no longer see its frightening shadow. The horse took a deep breath, feeling the calm certainty of the boy, and allowed Alexander to ride him. They became inseparable companions, traveling through endless fields of wild lavender and golden wheat, moving with a steady, rhythmic heartbeat. But peace in Macedonia was fragile. In the year 336 BC, King Philip was suddenly lost to a dark conspiracy. At just 20 years old, Alexander found himself carrying the immense weight of an entire kingdom. The older generals thought him too young, an unproven boy who hadn't even mastered his own night's sleep. Yet, Alexander possessed a quiet, unyielding focus. He didn't just command from a distant throne. He lived among his soldiers, shared their simple meals on the ground, and won their absolute devotion. With his kingdom secure, Alexander turned his gaze toward the vast and powerful Persian Empire. His journey took him to the ancient island city of Tyre. Rising majestically from the blue waters of the Mediterranean. For 7 long months, he stood on the shores, watching the waves crash against the city's walls. His soldiers grew weary, but Alexander showed an incredible, hypnotic patience. He sat by the sea, matching his breathing to the rhythmic roar of the tide, in and out, knowing that time would eventually open the gates. Next was the desert fortress of Gaza, surrounded by shifting golden sands. The air was thick and warm, smelling of salt and ancient dust. Alexander stood before it, calm and unmoving, winning the fortress not through reckless rage, but through a steady, inevitable persistence that brought a serene peace to the troubled land. The grand climax of his Persian campaign arrived on the vast plains of Gaugamela. It was the autumn of 331 BC. The Persian Emperor, Darius III, had assembled a massive army that stretched across the horizon like a sea of flickering, angry campfires. Alexander's forces were heavily outnumbered, resting in the quiet dark. His generals begged him to launch a chaotic night attack. But Alexander softly refused, saying he would not steal his victory. While the Persian army stayed awake all night, tense and trembling in their heavy armor, Alexander did something extraordinary. He retreated to his tent, wrapped himself in a warm blanket, and fell into a deep, peaceful sleep. His breathing was slow and steady. He slept so deeply that his commanders had to gently shake him awake as the morning sun painted the sky in soft shades of pink and gold. With a mind clear as crystal, he stepped onto the field and executed a brilliant fluid strategy that shattered the Persian lines. Darius fled into the dust, and the empire gently settled into Alexander's hands. The great march pressed onward, past the grand hanging gardens of Babylon, over the snow-capped freezing peaks of the Hindu Kush Mountains, and down into the lush, mysterious landscapes of India. The air here was entirely different, vibrant, humid, and alive with the heavy scent of rain and wild jasmine. In the year 326 BC, Alexander faced the powerful King Porus at the Hydaspes River. The river was swollen with violent monsoon rains. On the opposite bank stood massive war elephants, looking like grey mountains moving through the mist. After a long and grueling battle, Alexander emerged victorious. But instead of punishing the fallen Indian king, Alexander walked up to him under the soft falling rain and asked how he wished to be treated. Porus looked him in the eye and replied, "Like a king." Alexander smiled faintly. Recognizing true nobility, he returned Porus's kingdom to him, expanding his territories and forging a deep, respectful friendship. But even the grandest rivers must eventually turn back. Deep in the heart of India, under the endless grey monsoon clouds, Alexander's soldiers began to weep. They were exhausted. Their boots were torn, their armor was rusted, and their hearts ached for the quiet homes and families they had left behind decades ago. For 3 days, Alexander sat silently in his tent, listening to the steady, heavy patter of the rain on the canvas. Drop, drop, drop. He realized that the truest victory was knowing when to listen to his people. He stepped out, looked at his tired men, and softly gave the order to turn around. They were going home. The journey back across the harsh deserts was long and quiet. Along the way, his loyal companion, the great stallion Bucephalus, passed away peacefully of old age. Alexander built a beautiful city by the river in his honor, ensuring his friend would never be forgotten. By the time they reached the ancient gates of Babylon in 323 BC, The heavy toll of 1,000 battles had finally caught up with the young king's body. At just 32 years old, Alexander lay on his royal bed. The large windows were open, letting in the cool, twilight breeze from the Euphrates River. His soldiers, hearing of his fading strength, walked past his bed in a silent, heartbreaking procession, touching his hand one last time. Alexander could no longer speak, but his eyes, one dark as midnight, one blue as the ocean, closed slowly, drifting into a quiet eternal sleep. But our story does not end in sorrow, for true legacies do not fade, they transform. After his passing, his vast empire was gently divided among his trusted generals. Ptolemy took the crown of Egypt, Seleucus governed the vast lands of Persia, and Cassander looked after Macedonia and Greece. While these rulers built their own kingdoms, something beautiful happened. The walls between different worlds crumbled. The grand city of Alexandria in Egypt arose, becoming a jewel of the ancient world. It housed the great library, a sanctuary where all the knowledge of the earth, from Greek philosophy to Persian astronomy and Indian science, was gathered under one roof. The fierce soldiers became architects, traders, and scholars. They built theaters, schools, and vibrant marketplaces where different cultures blended together like melodies in a sweet symphony. This beautiful era of shared wisdom, art, and unity became known as the Hellenistic Age. Conclusion: the mystery and the starry night. Alexander's final resting place became a profound mystery, swallowed up by the shifting sands of time, hidden away from the world. Perhaps it was meant to be that way, so that he belonged not to a single tomb, but to the entire world he sought to understand. The great kingdoms have transformed. The grand palaces have returned to the earth, but the peace of the night remains exactly the same. The very same stars that looked down upon Alexander's camp in the desert are looking down upon you right now. They blink slowly, reassuringly, casting a soft, protective silver blanket over the world.